This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and around the world on the X-Zone Broadcast Network and Starcom Radio Network. If you'd like to give us a call, 800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And you can listen to the X-Zone 7/24/365, including the live show 8 p.m. until midnight at www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour, Exonation, is Dr. Elisa Medhus, and this is a rather strange one, Exonation. The name of the book is My Life After Death, a Memoir from Heaven. And we're going to introduce you to Erik Medhus, the author from the Afterlife. Now, My Life After Death, a Memoir from Heaven, which goes on sale September the 1st of this year. It's published by Beyond Words and Atria. Begins on the fateful day when Erik Medhus, at the age of 20, took his own life. What follows is Erik's detailed, moment-by-moment account of his death, transition, and the new life he discovers on the other side, told for the very first time in his own words as channeled by renowned medium Jamie Butler and transcribed by Erik's mother, Dr. Elisa Medhus. The follow-up to My Son and the Afterlife, Erik delivers on his promise to show what heaven is like and how it works. Erik's candor, irreverent humor, and fascinating story is riveting, while also offering guidance, hope, and a deeper understanding of what happens when your time on earth ends. My Life After Death provides peace and solace for those who have grieved a loss and answers critical questions for everyone who has ever wondered about the existence of an afterlife. Ultimately, Erik's message is, life never truly ends. Joining me now is Dr. Elisa Medhus. And, Doctor, this is
yes, Rob.
This is a first for the X-Zone, actually having the author on the other side channeling to the people on this side. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Where does this start? What's the timeline?
Well, 5 years ago, Erik shot himself. And my journey began 3 days. Well, of course, the journey is from the moment of his death, but my journey began when Erik showed up to my militantly atheist father, making him panic. My father was sitting in a chair, and all of a sudden he sees Erik standing in front of him. Erik turns into his little boy self and crawls up into his lap. So this is a guy who is so militantly atheist that it really, when he had this experience, made me wonder, wow, maybe there is life after death. So, yeah, I'm a physician. So for me, my whole world is science, and that meant that nothing existed if it could not be perceived by the senses or measured by an instrument. So when this experience happened with my father, that's when I decided to go on this journey of, studying quantum physics and reading about near-death experiences and alternate dimensions and controlled studies on mediums. And that was a very bumpy road from skeptic to believer, let me tell you.
Well, you're a doctor. You're a medical scientist. How were you able to rationalize in your scientific being that this was really happening, that this wasn't mind over matter, this wasn't part of the grieving process, but this was real?
Well, first of all, I didn't want to believe it.
Why?
I know that sounds counterintuitive to people, but if I did believe that Erik still existed and then, bought it hook, line, and sinker, and then found out it was all a bunch of nonsense, it would be like losing him all over again. And I can't tell you how devastating the first loss was. To have it happen again would be too much for me. So this is not the wishful thinking of a grieving mother. I wanted proof, and I got it time and time again. And now there's so much hard evidence that I really can't deny his ongoing existence.
Tell me about the proof.
Well, for example, shortly after Erik died, I was walking to his bedroom where he had shot himself, and my second oldest daughter, Michelle, was following me, and she had a very strong connection with Erik. She felt his presence. So when she did, there happened to be a digital camera right on a table in the room we were just passing through. She picked it up, started snapping pictures, and she would look at the pictures afterwards, and there was one of a bright globe, a bright orb following me, and it had a comet tail, so it looked like it was moving fast. Now, we got it analyzed by photography experts who concluded, once he brought the gamma filters down, whatever the heck that means, that it was a light source. You could even see it with a gamma taken down, the light reflecting on nearby structures. That was the first, besides the experience with my father. But then we started getting all sorts of odd things happening, like faucets would turn on slowly while we watched. Unplugged appliances would start working. Unplugged, no power. Airsoft BBs would appear at the ceiling and drop to the... At one point, Erik even called me. I heard his voice. That was an experience I'll never forget. But, still, the skeptic that I was, I just, time would pass and doubt would creep in. So, I started to second guess myself. It was only until I had a recording of his voice, and I've had many since then, that I finally went from hovering at 90% sure to 100% sure. And, that was when I heard his voice on one of the recorded sessions I had with Jamie Butler, the medium.
All right, so you didn't hear his voice on your own. It was the medium that was the catalyst for the voice? Or the connection?
No, we recorded the session, and a year and a half later, a blog member, I have a blog called Channeling Erik, to help grievers who have lost their own loved ones. And she said, I hear a couple of voices on this, Elisa. So I thought, well, no, that's impossible. It's just me and Jamie. But of course, I listened to it, and sure enough, there were voices, and one of them was clearly my son's. I mean, a mother knows the sound of her own kid's voice. The way he said breakfast, like a little child. His verbal tick, he had lots of ticks. One sounded like he was clearing his throat. That was there. And, of course, being the scientist, I thought, well, let me get this analyzed. So I did. I looked up a sound professional who analyzed it and said, yep, this is not a human voice because it left no voice signature. And among other reasons.
Whoa, wait a second here. I've been in broadcasting for a number of years, and if you hear something, it does leave a digital print, or else it can't get recorded.
No, according to this sound expert, no.
Well,
no voice signature at all.
Then he is no sound expert.
Oh, he is. He's worked in audiovisual for a long time.
I will tell you something. After 24 years in broadcasting, if something is heard and it's on a digital tape or on a digital recorder, it will leave an imprint. I've never, ever, ever, ever heard of that before.
Well, maybe you have not picked up any sounds of spirits. It's a little different, the way they work with the recording devices. So I don't know exactly how Erik did it, but it was clearly different. And we had another gentleman look at it, and I actually do have the sound imprint and the analysis showing the lack of the voice imprint. So, I could send that to you.
Okay, yeah, I'd appreciate that, because without it registering, you can't reproduce the sound. It's impossible.
Yeah, they thought, they thought the world was flat for a long time.
Yeah, but Doctor, I think we're mixing apple and oranges here. But if that's what your expert says, and if that's what you believe, who am I to argue?
Well, I've had two experts, and they both concluded.
And
one of them, the second one, said that Erik apparently used my voice to create his own sound, and this is really interesting because it was during a radio interview. A radio host, the host called me back later and said that she had heard a voice that was not on the live recording, when we first had the interview. And we didn't hear anything.
Right.
But I listened to the timestamp that she sent. And, there was Erik saying, "Minions," really loudly. And then right after that, Jamie follows with, he calls them minions. And, that's another analysis that Dr. R. Craig Hogan, PhD, studied. So I could send you that. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, because this is, well, like I said, with all my years' experience, this is unheard of. But like you said, at one time they thought the earth was flat.
Yeah.
How did you find these experts?
Well, a lot of them just came out of the woodwork because they heard the sounds themselves. Two of them, and you volunteered to do it. And one works at Harvard, and the other he is a film producer that works a lot with audio visual.
Now, had these people had an interest in the paranormal?
I know the one that was a film producer did.
Right.
Craig Hogan, I really don't know, to tell you the truth.
Okay. So when did you have your first conversation with your son?
Well, I think the first one was probably a month or two after he died. I went to bed, and I didn't really even have time to put my head on the pillow when there he was, jumping from the left foot of the bed to the right, back and forth. And my deceased sister Denise was sitting on the left foot, looking at him and grinning, and I just couldn't believe it. I thought, well, I know I'm awake, but this can't be happening. It makes absolutely no sense. He's dead. But I followed him with my eyes back and forth, and all of a sudden he turns his face toward me and looks completely startled and says, "Mom, you can see me." And he falls into my arms and we hug, and the hug felt absolutely solid.
How many times have you seen your son over the years?
Not very many, maybe 3 or 4 times.
And
it's very difficult because everything is energy.
Yeah.
I mean, everything, even thoughts and emotions are energy. And Einstein referred to matter as frozen light. Everything is energy. And all energy vibrates at a very unique frequency on this long electromagnetic spectrum. Now, we humans occupy a tiny, tiny sliver, the visible range. That's where our reality is. That's where we see things. Spirits, along with radio waves and cosmic waves and microwaves, etc., vibrate a frequency outside of that visible range. That's why we can't see them. But it's so weird that people don't believe in spirits because they don't see them. Because we can't see radio waves, yet we know they exist.
Right, because they leave an imprint.
Well, spirits leave an imprint too, with via EVPs.
All right,
medium,
okay, but let's go back here a few steps. You said that spirits leave an imprint on an EVP. I agree with that. That
right.
If there's a sound, there's an imprint. But you said that according to 2 experts, your son's voice was there and it left no digital imprint.
I don't know what to tell you because I don't know enough about the science behind audio things, but all I can tell you is the guy said it did not leave a voice signature. It could be heard, but without having the imprint. So it didn't follow the normal. I mean, it's just, they're spirits. They don't, I guess, have to follow the normal laws of acoustics.
How, like, when we look at the big picture, what was your son? Why did your son stay behind? Why didn't he go with the rest of the spirit world? Why did he decide to stick around?
Well, there's no sticking around necessarily. I mean, he did cross over, but that he still is able to come and visit. It's not a one-way door.
It's not.
For example, he visits and pranks blog members all over the world. I've got over 30,000 blog members, and I get stories every day about how he's appeared before them or done sort of pranks. He's very mischievous. One guy, I think this is one of the first ones that was conveyed to me, was an Irish gentleman named Damien. And he contacted me saying, your son just appeared right before me here. And I was like, okay, tell me about it. He said, yeah, he just came up to me and said, dude, I bet I can tell you how far away your girlfriend is. And his girlfriend at the time was living in Canada, so they were quite far apart. And sure enough, he gave a certain number of, I don't know how many kilometers, and was very close. So, and since then, he has been visiting blog members all over the world, spreading his mischief.
Why? Why is he visiting all these blog members?
I think he just wants, that's a very good question. I think he just wants to spread the word about spirituality, that death is not the end. It's just a transition to another dimension. He wants people to know that.
Has he visited other people besides your blog?
Oh, yeah. Well, my family, I know that.
Right.
I maybe he's connected with other people that are not blog members. I know he's connected with a lot of radio hosts, so you better watch your back.
I fear not. I fear not.
I know.
So you decided to use this medium to communicate between Erik and yourself. Am I right? Is this how it worked? Right.
And I was very unsure about this, but after I read as many books as I could on quantum physics, the quantum physics behind spirituality, and other things, I didn't really know what else to do. And I had heard that a lot of parents do seek out the help of mediums to connect with their child, mostly out of desperation, I suppose. And so I thought, well, I'll try it. Even though before Erik died, when I thought about mediums, I thought about a gypsy hunched over a crystal ball. So I was very unsure about my decision. But when I talked to Jamie, first of all, she only knew my name. She did not know I had a son, much less one that killed himself. And the first thing she said was, I've got your son here. And he said he took his life. Then she went on to describe where he took his life, that he was sitting at his desk, that he used a gun, the exact type of gun it was, the exact description of the clothes he was wearing. It was just too hard for me to dismiss. And still, it took a long time for me to develop the confidence that this was all real. It took probably 4 years after his death for me to really feel like I'm on board 100%.
If you had that encounter with your son and your departed niece, and you could feel him physically, your son was talking to you, he said, you can see me, why would you need a medium? Why couldn't you have done it yourself?
Well, that's really interesting. That's a very interesting question. I don't, first of all, have the talent. I do channel him, but not enough to trust myself to publish anything that's channeled on the blog.
Oh, okay,
so
but why would you trust a stranger instead of yourself?
Well, she's not a stranger anymore, but there are some people that just have the gift to be able to. That's true. That's true. And I did not completely trust it for a long time. It took 4 years for me to really gain the trust that I was on the right path and that I was talking to Erik through a medium.
I find it hard to understand why, if you had the contact and your son manifested himself in a fully physical form that you were able to hold, and if he was able to talk to you, why you would need a medium? Something doesn't ring right with that.
Well, that's true, but, I don't have the talent. I cannot just call up Erik anytime I want.
Why
see
not?
him like Jamie does, and because I just am not a channeler. I'm not a medium.
Then how do you explain the fact? Then how do you?
Some mediums are able to just tune the radio frequency
Sure.
right into the spirit and talk. I don't have that talent. I can do it, in fits and spurts,
Right.
but not like a gifted medium can. And I've been through a lot of mediums, and some of them are just awful.
Sure.
But
I don't trust any of them.
One of the ones that is.
I don't trust any of them. I think they're all a bunch of con artists. Yeah. Well, how do you know she's the real thing?
Well, let's look at the time where where the radio host found that voice that said minion, and then right after you hear Jamie saying he calls them minions.
Have you ever heard of thought?
Now,
have you ever heard of thought transference?
No.
It's something that is being discovered and being investigated by the psychological community and psychiatrists, where you can actually transfer your thoughts. It's a form of ESP that has been found to be the case in UFO sightings, ghost sightings, and even transcommunications, where the person who is doing the trance or the communication is actually transferring thought.
Well, if you believe in that, why would you not believe in the fact that the spirit is just the same as they were in life, but without a body?
I have yet to have had the opportunity of having that proven to me, and I've been doing this for 24 years.
Yeah.
I understand that grief is a horrible thing, and my heart is with you. My heart is with you and your family. But I have to ask tough questions.
Oh, sure. I'm ready for them, too.
Yeah.
Because I asked myself those same very tough questions for 4 years after my son's death.
Yeah.
Like I said, I did not want to believe in this.
Tell me something about the radio host. Was it a paranormal show?
No, not in particular. It's been more than one host, too. There's been like 2 or 3, and they're on my YouTube channel.
Oh, okay. But are they paranormal talk shows? Are they blog talks? Are they traditional radio stations?
One was a traditional. I think one was blog talk. I think one was, a spiritual type genre radio show.
New Age stuff. Okay. So what is your goal with writing your books? What do you want to tell people, or what does Erik want? What is the message that Erik is giving to the world through your medium?
Well, he gives several messages, obviously, but I think one of the most important ones that I want to give is that, the fact that death is not the end, and that just because you've lost someone does not mean that you cannot continue to have a relationship with them, and they want you to. They're the same. They just don't have a body. You just can't see them. But they are the same Uncle Joe or Aunt Martha that you knew in life. And there's no reason why you can't continue to have a relationship with them.
But once again, I'm going to go back to the point where you said you actually saw your son. You embraced your son. He was with your niece.
Right.
So how do we explain that? Your story has so much in it. It's earth moving. How do you deal with it all?
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm just being dragged around by the leash by this 150-pound Doberman, and it's taking me to parts that I don't. So it's a bit overwhelming because, again, I didn't really want to get involved in this at all. But I get emails every day saying how Erik has saved a person, figuratively or literally. I mean, I had one comment not that long ago from a gentleman who said, I was planning on killing myself today, but after reading this post, I want to live.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had another woman, it was about a year ago, who had lost her son, just like me,
Mm-hmm.
and she was going to therapy for several months, and it wasn't working, in her case anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So she committed herself to come home from a therapy session, her last therapy session, and take her life. And I can't remember how she was going to do it,
Mm-hmm.
but she set everything up. But before she did anything, she was nudged to the computer to type in, "My son is dead." Up comes Channeling Erik, the blog,
Mm-hmm.
and she reads it from the beginning to the end, all the archives, and makes the decision that life is worth living. And those people are with me, are with us still today. So I get those are just two of the hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of stories I have on the blog of people that he's helped. And, to me, as a physician, I could not save that many lives.
Is it possible?
As a doctor.
Is it possible that you are the one saving these lives, and that you are the one keeping Erik's memory alive, and that it is you who are doing all these wonderful things?
Well, it's certainly possible, but there's just been too much evidence. I mean, how do you explain a airsoft BB dropping from the ceiling? How do you explain we have this kitchen vent,
Mm-hmm.
sucks up all the smoke when I burn my cooking?
Right.
Anyway, so we were remodeling the kitchen, and so there was no power to it. But yet,
Mm-hmm.
every time my husband came home, 3 days in a row,
Mm-hmm.
that vent would slowly rise up and then go down again, as if waving hello. There was no power to the kitchen. How do you explain things like that?
How do you, as a scientist, explain that something worked when there was no electricity?
I can't, and that's why how I've learned that
Okay.
not everything, not material science is not necessarily the explanation for everything. And just
Right.
because you can't perceive it with your senses or measure it with an instrument does not mean it doesn't exist. The great Arthur Schopenhauer said, truth goes through three phases. First, it's ridiculed, then it's scorned, and eventually it's accepted as self-evident. And I think that's what we're going through right now as we go from material science to quantum science to explain some of these aspects of spirituality. Scientists are now discovering that the soul is made of neutrinos, these tiny little particles that were discovered because they were able to pass through lead. And that in the physical form, they are particles. But after we transition, they become waves that are carriers of information. They also discovered that, or they think that the soul was connected to the body in the hollow spaces of these tiny little intracellular structures called microtubules. Those are little hollow tubes that are responsible for maintaining the integrity of the cell, but they also are involved in cell replication, etc. And so the soul is tethered to the body in that hollow space.
Right. When it comes to the messages that you have received personally, when was was this one single manifestation and one and only case with Erik and your niece?
No, I've seen him in other cases, other times too. Yeah.
Physically, it's a whole apparition. It's a solid apparition.
Yeah. Well, he's see-through. I can't. It doesn't seem completely solid.
So the
But most of my
translucent.
communication, comes through pranks, like turning deadbolts, locking us out of places, and some of the other things I mentioned, and goosebumps, really strong, highly intense, almost painful goosebumps in a very small region of the body, like the scalp or the leg. This is not physiologically how goosebumps should work.
So how do like you're a doctor? What would be the physiology behind that happening?
I can't explain it. Can't explain everything.
All these pranks that happen, do they just happen to you in your house?
Oh no.
No?
Many places.
Such as?
Yeah. Well, on vacation in Norway, when we were visiting relatives, he appeared before me, and it was 20 degrees below zero, and he appeared in a Hawaiian shirt, so I thought it was kind of funny and unexpected. But it took me a long time to get a lot of visits from Erik, and there's a scientific reason for that. people who grieve, you know, like I said, all energy vibrates on this long electromagnetic spectrum, but their vibration tends to be extremely low, and that's why we use terms like "I feel low," "I'm depressed." That's why you feel really heavy. So you're sort of at the lower end of the visible range of the visible, you know, spectrum on that EMS, electromagnetic spectrum. Spirits vibrate at a very high frequency, and so they have to lower their frequency in order to get into the visible spectrum. So here I am at the lower part, a deeply grieving mother. You know, it's very difficult to get those visitations. At least early on, when I was really grieving at my hardest.
All right, Doctor, stand by. I've got to take a commercial break at the bottom of the hour. X-Zone Nation, Dr. Elisa Medhus. I'm sorry, how do you pronounce your family name?
I'm sorry, it's so difficult. Medhus. I had to marry a Norwegian, yeah.
We'll be back on, and the website is
channelingerik.com.
There you go. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Ever wondered if your advertising dollar is really working for you? If your ad would have been here, you and more than 4 million people would be listening to it right now. Contact ads at xzoneradiotv.com. Good real estate websites are not just about showing listings, but offering visitors valuable information about neighborhoods, market statistics, tips, and personal insights. Luckily, you will find that on Roost, but you won't on many other real estate websites in Budapest. That's why we created Roost. Roost is a website with tailored results for the foreign investor, curated by Hungarian-loving expats who found their home abroad and decided to roost in Budapest. Let Roost help you get started on the right foot. Whether you intend to live, work, play, retire, or simply invest abroad, Roost offers all types of properties in Budapest, from affordable studios to luxury homes. From neighborhood insights like where to grab a great coffee or how to buy property, our team of local experts can answer your questions and speak to the direct concerns of a foreign investor. Buying foreign property is an exciting and complex adventure. It can also be very time-consuming and costly if you don't have the best information and resources at hand. Roost provides professional real estate services and assistance to an international clientele of foreign property investors and rental apartment owners in Budapest. For more information on Roost, visit their website at www.roost.co. That's www.rooste.co. Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifeology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com.
I'm William S. Peckham. If you enjoy a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love my novel, From Out of the Woodwork. It's the story of a young Toronto contractor, Sean Kennedy, who buys derelict homes, guts them, and turns them into multifamily dwellings. Slums just waiting to happen. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, the house fights back. Former owners unexpectedly come out of the woodwork as he starts the destruction. The apparitions come to him when he touches old books, reads hidden letters, rummages through old boxes, finds a locket, or reads a discovered manuscript of a murder mystery. From Out of the Woodwork will take you from 1899 to the horror of the World Trade Center, September 11, 2001. Check out From Out of the Woodwork on my website, www.williamspeckham.com.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. Our guest this hour, X-Zone Nation, is Dr. Elisa Medhus. www.channelingerik.com. During the commercial break, my producer found something that we found rather interesting. The voice analysis that was done by Dr. Craig Hogan. He is, if the information is correct, he is he's an author of Your Eternal Self and the director of the Center for Spiritual Understanding and on the boards of the Academy of Spiritual and Paranormal Studies and Association for Evaluation and Communications of Evidence for Survival. I wonder if the results would have come back the same if the analysis would have been done by someone who had nothing to do with the paranormal.
I don't know. You know, a good scientist will not let his or her beliefs get in the way of the analysis. So I would hope not. But this file is available to anybody who wants to analyze it. I do not question it, and I think it's totally fine. If anybody wants to give a crack at it and analyze it, I think it'd be good.
When was the last time you had a physical visualization of Erik?
Oh, gosh. Probably a year ago. I think it was probably in Norway.
Really? Well, what does Erik do when he's not? What does he do on the other side? Let me ask you that question.
That's a good question. He does talk about that a lot in the book. He talks about not only what his transition was like and what death was like, but what heaven, he calls it home, but what it looks like and what his life as a spirit is like, even the typical day. And it's very much like it's just a different parallel dimension where it's very similar to Earth in that you only you can manifest your own reality. You can manifest any kind of possession you want. You can, thought creates reality, basically. You can manifest the snowy slope to go snowboarding down. But mostly he works with the blog members. And, in the morning he hangs out with us until we get our day going. Then he hangs out and helps and gives guidance to the several blog members. And then at night he comes home and hangs out with us, his family, his immediate family again. And then after that, he goes to the other time zones and helps blog members there.
Wow.
And then he spends some alone time doing things that he likes, like manifesting a motorcycle and going down a fast track, etc.
He manifests a motorcycle?
Well, you can manifest anything. Thought creates reality. It's the collapsing of the Schrodinger equation that will make a wave collapse into a particle, a photon can become a particle. That's how reality is created. That's how matter is created. It takes consciousness, the observation of consciousness, to make this equation called the Schrodinger equation collapse this wave into a particle. Just like I was talking about the neutron being in a particle form but transforming into a wave after we transition.
So what happens to us when we die?
Well, the one interesting anecdote I want to tell you is Erik says that the whole fact that our soul is tethered to the hollow space in these microtubules, that some people have a hard time disconnecting from that space. And so the friction, the energy builds up and up and up until, whoosh, you have spontaneous human combustion. That's the etiology behind spontaneous human combustion, apparently.
Wow.
And these are very often people who have a hard time letting go of things anyway, such as hoarders. But basically, you disconnect from that microtubule hollow space, and you transform from these neutrino particles to neutrino waves that become carriers of information. And we are essentially consciousness, or information, seeking information. We are sentient energy that's self-aware.
So the heaven that we all, or most of us, have heard about, where you sit on the right hand of God, you're on top of the clouds, you get to chat with the angels. Is this real or is this myth?
Well, you can have any kind of reality you want. If that's what you want, you create it, because thought creates reality. Consciousness creates reality. But atheists, for example, when they pass on into complete darkness. And then all of a sudden they'll realize they're still thinking, like, hey, I wonder what happened to Fido. Did I see them? And then they'll start to panic and ask for help, and their vibration of their energy will raise to a point where they can receive help from other spirits. There are some people who believe in the whole, passing into a white tunnel type thing. That's what they'll get. There are some people who believe that you have to battle your demons and go through some sort of hellish type experience before you get to the other side. And so they create that experience for themselves. So what happens to you is actually based on whatever belief system you had about crossing over and about heaven to begin with.
So when we look at heaven and hell, would hell be here on earth?
I think so sometimes. Let me tell you, after Erik died, that's what I thought. That there could not be a worse hell. But there's really no such thing as hell unless we want to create that reality for ourselves after we cross over. And even that is never permanent. You never stay in some sort of iteration of hell.
Right.
For long. You always ask for help.
How is your book different than other books that are out there, in the genre about life after death, communication after death? There's a ton of them out there. I don't know that it goes that there are any others that go into such detail about the graphic nature, the details about death and crossing over and the life review and what heaven looks like and what there is there and what spirits do there, etc. There's no more mystery. And in fact, that is really what healed me the most. It took three things to heal me. First, the hard evidence that, there's so much for me that I cannot deny his ongoing existence. Second thing that healed me is knowing that I could continue a relationship with him, and I do. And in many ways, that relationship is much richer than the one we had when he was alive. Mm-hmm. The third is a memoir. I mean, I know how he's doing. I know he's doing great. I know what his life as a spirit is like. I know so much about the place he now calls home. So the mystery's all but gone. So in a way, I really don't grieve anymore over Erik. And I never thought I'd even say that a year ago. But I don't grieve. I miss him. Mm-hmm. But it's like a parent who has a kid on some study abroad program, and that any day they could come to the door with a bag full of laundry, dirty laundry. That's the way I feel about Erik. I miss him. That's it. But is, as you've said before, that he makes himself known to you. You have actual manifestation of him. So is it like he's just on a holiday and he's going to pop back home soon?
Well, it's not the same. When I have my other son, he's in California visiting his aunt, and I miss him, but I talk to him all the time.
Right.
And he just finds friends to see where he is in California. So yeah, we do have the contact, but it's not the same as having Erik here, being able to hug him anytime I want,
right.
being able to fuss at him to do his chores or come down for dinner. It's not the same. Yet it's a missing, not a grieving.
You've had quite a few conversations with Erik about a wide variety of topics. What's the most important piece of insight that he's shared with you that you'd like to share with others?
Great question. I think one thing he stresses that we are not human beings, we're emotional beings. We are made of emotion being a form of energy. And so it's very important for us to feel first and think second. Now, most of us, and this includes me, of course, are accustomed to having a thought about something, and then that creates some sort of emotional response. And then that emotional response creates some sort of choice or reaction. But really what we should be doing is feeling first, connecting with our emotions. What are we feeling? And letting that produce a thought. And then that thought crafts some sort of reaction or choice. He also stresses...
Go on, I'm sorry, dear.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I insist. Go ahead.
He also stresses the importance, I guess, as emotional beings is certainly very important, of being emotionally honest with yourself and others. And that's very hard sometimes to do because we live in such an externally directed society. We become externally directed. We make choices based on what's going to grant us the approval of our pack, so to speak. But he says that it's very important to be emotionally honest with yourself, no rationalizations, no excuses, etc., and to be emotionally honest with others.
What is his main message that he channeled through Jamie?
Gosh, there's just so many. I don't know that there's a main one. Besides the two we just talked about, I would say that you need to continue to have a relationship with those you have, air quotes, lost, because you really never have lost them. They just don't happen to have a body. That's the only difference.
Does he ever leave any messages or give any messages about what is going to happen in the world? Does he give any predictions?
I don't like to ask fear-based things like, is there going to be a meteor, an asteroid that's going to destroy Earth, things like that. So I don't really ask him questions like that. But he does say that the chaos we're experiencing in the world is important because we are here in this human experience to learn from contrast. For example, there, as a spirit, you can conceptualize things. But we have to create a human experience, come down to Earth and have a human experience to create the contrast to really understand something. For example, you can't really, you can get a conceptual idea of the sense of cold, but until you experience hot, you're not really going to get it. So that's why we have to have the chaos to understand basically various facets of love and understanding. That's what we're here to do.
Gotcha.
To remember how to love and that we are love. He uses the brownie metaphor. I like it because it explains it very well. In spirit, you can kind of look at a picture of a brownie, read the recipe, kind of get an idea of what a brownie's all about. But no, you have to come to Earth, get in the kitchen, mix up all the ingredients, get batter all over yourself like I probably would. And then you put it in the pan, stick it in the oven, burn your fingers maybe. But then you take them out, cool them off, you ice them, and you take a bite. That's when you really know what a brownie's all about. Not by just the image and the recipe.
What about reincarnation? Does he talk about reincarnation?
Oh, yeah. There's no really reincarnation because just like Einstein said, there is no linear time. That is a human construct that we need. We have to have linear time in order to have cause and effect, for example. Or, hey, I need to get up, eat breakfast, and then go to work, etc. but there is no real time. So your past, present, future are all happening at once. So you're living all your incarnations at the same time. He describes it like a wagon wheel, okay? Or, well, let me give you the simpler one first. A stack of books, okay? That whole vertical stack of books, those are all your lives. They exist at the same moment. You are just focusing on one particular book, your current life.
So
all the others exist.
So let me ask you this. If he is reincarnated, do you lose communication with him?
Excuse me? Say that again?
If Erik was to be reincarnated tomorrow, would all communication with Erik end?
No, not at all. He's incarnated. He might not be incarnated in terms of earthly time right now, but all his future and past incarnations, just like yours, are going on at the same time right now. Think of a wagon wheel. I'll get to that analogy. Now, your soul, your higher self, is in the hub, and all the spokes are your different incarnations. They're all there at once. All the spokes are there right now. And, when you die, the spoke, that part of your soul, recedes back into the higher self, and another one can go back along that spoke. But as the wheel turns, it leaves a track in the mud, and that's the actual linear timeline that we have created as human beings.
You've been quoting Einstein over the past hour when it comes to quantum physics. What happens if in time he is proven wrong? Like you said at the beginning, we used to think the world was flat. It's not. What makes Einstein immune from this change of the world being flat to remaining flat?
Great question, and he's not immune. As things change, I'm an open-minded skeptic. I am open to change depending on what kind of facts I get that land in my lap. So, by all means, I am not going to sign on for anything permanently. When something comes along that could change my mind, I'll change my mind.
But what would happen if that person had irrefutable evidence to say that this wasn't really a communication from the other side? What would you say? How would you feel?
I would feel terrible about it, but I would be open to it.
Would you?
But of course. Like I said, this is not the wishful thinking of a grieving mother. I want the truth, and I want everybody else to have the truth. But again, as things stand now, the evidence that I've received and that science is now uncovering is just too strong to deny it. It's only a matter of time that we're going to get definitive proof.
One way or the other.
One way or the other, exactly.
All right. Well, I don't know what else to say. It's one of those cases that, makes you think. It makes you think. What do your colleagues within the medical community say? How do they look at the evidence? A
lot of them are closet believers. Actually, a lot of people are closet believers, but they're afraid of ridicule. A lot of doctors experience these bedside death visions that they find hard to dismiss. So, we deal with death all the time.
Right.
And sometimes, the last words of a patient might be, "Oh, Aunt Virginia's there. Oh, hi, Aunt Virginia," or something like that. So, so they're more open than I would have thought.
Fascinating story. Let our listeners know how they can find out more about you, Doctor, and get a copy of your book as well.
Well, the book, My Life After Death, is available online. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, brick and mortar bookstores, etc. And of course, the blog, it's just a wonderful group of people, is www.channelingerik.com.
I want to thank you so much for joining us, Doctor. Take care of yourself, and I don't know what to say. It's just one of those
We'll
cases.
find out eventually, won't we?
Yes, we will, ma'am.
We'll find out eventually, won't we?
Take care of yourself, ma'am. Exonation,
You too, Rob.
Dr.
Thank
Elisa,
you.
my pleasure, dear. Dr. Elisa Medhus has been our guest this hour. www.channelingeric.com. That's www.channelingeric.com. The book is available on Amazon.com and fine bookstores everywhere. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.